NTA International News.
Federal Executive Council approves National Water Policy. National Assembly suspends Abdulmumin Ajibril over budget padding allegation. Collation of votes underway as the governorship election is concluded in Edo State. Plus, world leaders eulogize late Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres, who passes on. It's good to have you join us this hour on NTA International News from Abuja, Nigeria. I am Phoebe Kabruk. Welcome. The federal government has approved a new national water resources policy aimed at improving the management, delivery and utilization of water resources in the best interest of the nation's economy. The Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, announced this while briefing newsmen at the end of the Federal Executive Council meeting, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that the government also clears the air on the controversy surrounding the sale of national assets.
The Federal Executive Council meeting, which lasted about 4 hours, centered mainly on the nation's water resources as critical sector of the economy. To this end, 3 memos on the National Water Policy, National Irrigation Policy, and National Water Resources Draft Bill presented by the Minister of Water Resources were all approved.
Many countries have gone to war over the issue of water. So I believe that it's really very timely that Nigeria is proactive and has considered the issue of water resources a matter that the federal government should take up seriously, and this is why the Honorable Minister brought about a lot of revolutionary measures and vision into the water resources.
While the National Water Resources Policy seeks to provide strategies towards improving the management and delivery of water resources in the country, the draft National Water Resources Bill, on the other hand, is aimed at consolidating all existing laws relating to water resources in line with international best practices. Water Resources Minister Suleiman Adamu explained that many of the overlapping laws will now be streamlined so that water resources sector of the economy can be properly regulated.
The door is now open for the private sector to come in a big way to invest in water supply schemes in this country. Nigeria has the potential of 3.14 million hectares of land for irrigation, out of which only 130,000 has been developed formally, and only about 70,000 is being utilized. So there is a huge gap, and we feel that introducing this policy will help us to work along at federal level and at regional level with the states, so that we have an all-encompassing policy that will help our agricultural agenda for now, and also support the national irrigation policy that we introduced under our roadmap that is supposed to be from this year to 2030.
In the meantime, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has described as unnecessary the controversy surrounding what he called speculation on the sale of national assets.
What is asset sale, asset leasing, whatever is being bandied about now, they are nothing but speculations. The government is set to come out with a position on how to bail out the economy.
Alhaji Lai Mohammed said the most comprehensive manner to reflect the nation's economy is being worked out by the federal government, and its position will soon be made public. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Nigeria, with an estimated 170 million population, is set to be 2% of the world's population. The rate of maternal and child mortality in the country, which experts put at 10% of death globally, is one set to be of dire consequences for the nation. The United Nations Fund for Population Activities delegation to Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is recommending child spacing as a source of control measure.
Interventions we know that works best. One of them is child spacing and family planning. It works. We can actually reduce that number by 30%. If we if we're able to reach every woman that requires child spacing today.
This is a problem that's been tackled very successfully in other parts of the world, and that's helped those countries grow their economies faster, increase incomes, as well as saving many, many lives. So this is one of the best interventions, one of the best things any country can do to accelerate its own development.
How can we do things differently in a way that will get different results? We are looking at building a strong system. We are looking at intervening at primary care level, and also looking at how can we strengthen the primary care system and also get the states involved. These are things that are lacking. We need to work with the states and to deliver results.
And Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says the announcement of $10 billion concessional agreement to African states over a 10-year period at the 2015 India-Africa Summit by the Indian government is a clear demonstration of brotherhood. He said this at a dinner organized in honor of the visiting Indian Vice President Mohammed Ansari at the State House Banquet Hall. Jide Onifade reports.
Since his arrival into the country early in the week, an official visit, the Indian Vice President has engaged in a number of programs, which include a bilateral talk with Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, where discussions centered on economic relations, peace and security, and consular matters. The two vice presidents also addressed a joint Nigeria-India Business Forum, which Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at this dinner says demonstrated the tremendous opportunities that exist.
Clearly, ours is a brotherhood that is not only strong but has stood the test of time. Your Excellency, the future of Nigeria-India relations is very bright indeed. The challenges we face in international terrorism, giving hope and opportunity to a restless, ever-growing number of young people, and sustainable development are clearly not insurmountable.
While commending the Nigerian government for the warm reception, Vice President Mohammed Hamid Ansari says all eyes are on the two countries as emerging forces of the world.
As responsible nations in a changing international order, we are committed to work together to foster the ideals of equitable representation and democratization of international institutions.
The relationship between two trading partners can always be an opportunity to boost development. We are a growing nation. India is more advanced in some areas, technology, and we can share technology with them.
From the banquet hall of the State House, Jide Onifade, NT News.
In another development, international terrorism can only be defeated by organized international action. These were the words of the Vice President of India, Mohammed Hamid Ansari, as he addressed participants of the National Defense College Course 25 on emerging security imperatives. Defense correspondent Isaac Nkuma reports.
With terrorism posing the biggest threat to international peace and sovereignty of states, India's Vice President Mohammed Hamid Ansari says restructuring the international legal framework by adopting a comprehensive convention on international terrorism is the way to go. He called on nations to increase their cooperation and strengthen efforts aimed at preventing supply of arms to terrorists, their movements, as well as curb and criminalize terror financing.
Management of ethnic and communal conflicts and resolving them are important areas of governance, as are the identification of threats posed by religious fundamentalism, ethnic violence, economic disparities, and deprivation.
Commandant National Defense College and the Minister of Defense, who was represented, say India and Nigeria have been linked by common historical experiences and are united in the desire to conquer terror and work towards tolerance, economic development and social justice in sustaining democracy.
The National Defense College has, over the years, shaped the thought processes of many generations of officers of our armed forces, as well as the civil service. and has also fostered a culture of strategic thinking amongst our policymakers.
This lecture is therefore vital, not only to this institution, but to our nations. I believe it will provide an important opportunity to take stock of the security challenges in the world and how it affects our current relationship.
In the meantime, Vice President Ansari says India is willing to share expertise and methodologies with interested countries on information communication technology for economic and security gains. The Indian Vice President's lecture at the college, some analysts say, will also form blocks to reactivating the Nigeria-India Joint Commission, which was first set up in 1979 to work out areas of collaborations between the two countries in the areas of economy, security, consular matters, regional and international interests. From the National Defense College, Abuja, Isaac Nkuma, NTA News.
The House of Representatives has suspended Honorable Abdulmumin Jibril for 180 legislative sitting days and bars him from holding position of responsibility. Details of his suspension in our subsequent bulletin. The trial of the Senate President Abubakar Bukola Saraki, his deputy Ike Ekweremadu, and the former clerk and his deputy in the rules forgery charge brought against them by the federal government could not commence on Wednesday. Aliu Tukur tells us why.
The Senate President, his deputy, and two others are standing trial on two-count charge bordering on alleged criminal conspiracy and forgery of the Senate Standing Rule 2015 since June this year, which they all pleaded not guilty to. Prosecution counsel Aliu Umar told the presiding judge, Justice Yusuf Halilu, that he is not ready to proceed with the trial because he received a motion filed by counsel to one of the defendants on 26th of this month, stating that he is entitled to a statutory time to respond to the motion. Umar, who led the government legal team, informed the court that the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice has not handed over the case files to him yet. As such, he applied for adjournment to enable him prepare his reactions to the series of motions filed by the defendants. Counsel to the Senate President and his deputy, Paul Irokoro and Joseph Daudu respectively, objected to the request, insisting that the matter was slated for trial over 2 months ago and the motion had been filed since June and was served on the Attorney General of the Federation. Likewise, counsel to the former clerk of the National Assembly and his deputy, Ikechukwu Ezechukwu and Mahamud Magaji, also objected to the prosecution's application not to commence the trial. Justice Yusuf Halilu adjourned the case to Friday, the 7th of next month, and added that the 4 defendants should continue to enjoy the bail granted them since June. In Abuja, Aliu Tukur, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Ecowas Court of Justice says it has adjudicated 136 out of 271 cases lodged before it from 2001 till date. Vice President of Ecowas Court of Justice, Justice Micah Wilkins, stated this during a press briefing to herald the commencement of the 2016-2017 legal year of the court. Oyeyemi Ajayi has the details.
The Ecowas Court of Justice was established through the instrumentality of the provisions of Articles 6 and 15 of the 1993 revised Treaty of Ecowas. It serves as an interstate community court vested with the responsibility of interpretation and application of revised treaty and other community texts. As the court prepares for its 2016-2017 legal year, the vice president of the court said since its inception in 2001, the court held 694 sessions and determined 138 cases, while 60 others are still pending.
The court has established an admirable culture of providing refuge for victims of human rights violations while holding member states accountable for their treaty obligations on or for human rights violations.
The court, which jurisdiction was initially for member states and community institutions, now has 4 distinct mandates. They include community court, an arbitration tribunal, an Ecowas public court, and a human rights court. The 2016-2017 legal year is expected to commence on 30th September 2016. The theme for this year's celebration is the contributions of the Ecowas Court of Justice in the fight against terrorist financing and the money laundering within the West African sub-region, with a perspective of Giaba. In Abuja, Oyeyemi Ajayi, NTA News.
This is the news on NTA International. There will be more news after this timeout. Stay with us.
Call of change, stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Dirty soul, so let the change begin from within. Look at you, all the ruler. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. NTA International News. Africa as it is.
Good to have you back. Collation of results of the Edo governorship election is underway across the state following early conclusion of the exercise. Our team of correspondents reports that while voting was peaceful generally, some areas, especially the hinterland, had delayed voting exercise. The turnout of voters in all the polling units was large, with peaceful conduct of election recorded in all the 18 local government areas of Edo State. We will bring you the update in our subsequent bulletin. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says the publication of a national daily which described the Change Begins With Me campaign as an attempt to tame Nigerians as a calculated mischief. In a statement, Lai Mohammed said the publication breached fairness in all its content, which is one of the ethics of journalism. The minister said the article was a misrepresentation of the Change Begins With Me program of the federal government, where President Muhammadu Buhari is re-emphasizing the need to revive the lost values of the nation. He said the campaign is to make Nigerians to be patriotic in all their dealings. Japanese government is assisting internally displaced persons in Borno State who have returned to their communities with farm inputs under the United Nations Early Recovery and Social Cohesion Support Program. Lami Ali reports that the distribution of the inputs was launched at Benishek.
The assistance from Japanese government coming at a time when internally displaced persons are resettling in their communities covers agricultural activities, including dry season irrigation and micro-business entrepreneurship. Borno State Commissioner for Reconstruction, Rehabilitation and Resettlement
reduced from $26.51 billion in the second quarter of 2016 to $24.74 billion in September. The minister noted that Nigeria has revenue and foreign currency concentration problems, saying diversification is the only solution. He further pointed that due to 4 strategic pipeline terminals that were blown up, Nigeria had been unable to achieve its 2016 budget production target of 2.2 million barrels per day. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras said on Wednesday he expected a positive outcome to discussion on debt relief for the country this year. Greece's debt pile corresponds to 176% of its national output. Lenders have promised to look at how Greece's debt mounting can be sustainable. A check at closing figures on the floor of Wednesday equities markets. And that's it on the business segment of the news. I am Olayinka Ojo. The news continues.
World leaders continue to pay tributes to former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres as Dutch-led joint investigation team indicates Russian-backed rebels for MH17 crash in 2014. Details of these and more with Chukwunoso Nwabweze.
Reports from Seychelles indicate that the country's vice president, Danny Fall, will be completing President James Mitchell's 5-year term following the president's resignation. A statement issued Wednesday by the State House says the vice president will be sworn in on October 16. Although Mitchell did not give reason for his decision to quit, there are speculations that the move might have been occasioned by the landslide victory by the opposition in the parliamentary elections held this month. Away from Africa, the Dutch-led joint investigation team investigating the crash of Malaysian flight MH17 that killed all 298 people on board from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur in 2014 has confirmed that the missile that brought down the plane was fired from territory controlled by Russian-backed rebels. The team stated that there were 100 people linked to the crash or the transport of the missile, but they are yet to determine who could be held criminally responsible. Meanwhile, Russia has disputed claims that the missile was fired by the rebels. And the international community has continued to eulogize Israeli former Prime Minister and President Shimon Peres, who died early Wednesday.
Any reports to the contrary as mischievous. Team Civil Defense of Kaduna defeated debutants Team Hope of Asaba 6-1 over 2 days in one of the Week 3 matches of the Nigerian Communications Commission Tennis League. Team Civil Defense, which placed second in the 2015 edition of the league, recovered from their first match when Ikechukwu Iloputa of Team Hope beat former national champion Shehu Lawal 6-2, 4-6, 7-6 in the men's singles. Another former national champion Babalola Abdulmumin leveled scores for Team Civil Defense with a 6-1 6-love victory over Paul Emmanuel of Team Hope. Civil Defense won the remaining 5 matches away in Asaba to sound a note of warning of their intention of winning the first position in 2016.
I'm so happy, very much happy. This is the match I'm expecting so far. Coming down to Delta and grab the first win here, it's a thing of joy to Team Civil Defense.
No, SCC has really brought great development in tennis, and we are grateful because from now to the end of the year, we'll be participating on and off